Hey everybody, Future Barbecue coming at you to let you know that there's gonna be big spoilers for Outer Wilds. The game is best experienced as blind as possible, and we'd rather you played the game and came back to this. The episode can wait. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the episode. Let's go.
I'm Honeyshuckleex.
I'm Sackbot Barbecue.
And I'm Giggleklutz. And today is the third episode of Outer Wilds August. Our topic today is fear.
Ah!
Ooh.
And to start us off, I'm going to remind you guys how old I am, because I think you probably, I know I've mentioned it before, but
there's always a chance it's your first episode.
Yeah, well, and conceptually, this might hit it home for you a little bit differently than anything I've been talking about. But I want to talk about one of the reasons that this game was so immersive to me, and why the space flight and space exploration simulation mechanic of Outer Wilds really clicked for me and really worked for me, was because of a bit of my history. And I've always been fascinated with space, and part of what really fed into me being fascinated with space was, sorry.
It's okay. We're used to doing plot recaps, not like personal lore recaps or history lessons.
Right, and this is that, definitely. So I'm going to take you back in time.
To like the 80s, right?
Literally the 80s, yeah. So back in the year 1984, President Ronald Reagan announced a new program that they were going to initiate called the Teacher in Space Project. And that project was that they had this idea that to encourage schools to teach more about space and the space program, because Reagan was very invested in us winning the space race. He wanted people to have public excitement for NASA and the space shuttle program. So they got this idea that they would basically have a contest to solicit applications from teachers all over the country and send an elementary school teacher into space with the astronauts. And they would be a cargo specialist, I believe. Rather than an actual astronaut, they would be a civilian specialist and be trained to be that civilian specialist, because everyone on the space shuttles has to have a job to do. They can't afford to take you up there without you having a specialty. Which is
unlike in this day and age.
Well, no, if you were going to be longer than a day trip, absolutely. Absolutely. They cannot afford to carry enough cargo to sustain you without you also being being in service of the mission. But anyway, yes. And that's a counterpoint people have to billionaires existing in space long term. They're not used to working, so it wouldn't work out for them at all. But anyway, back in the 80s, they had this Teacher in Space program, project. And this day and age also, it occurred to me as I was, going over my notes to tell this story, that in modern era, this would have been a reality TV show. They totally would have been a state-sponsored, probably done on PBS or something, television show. The contest to see who's the teacher that gets to go to space. Anyway, they sent out 40,000... What?
Like, just knowing where this story goes, hearing the idea that this would be a reality TV show is, it fits in with the theme. That is terrifying.
Yeah. Some of you are already going to have a clue of where this goes. But if you don't spoil it for everybody else, I guess. So they sent 40, fielding applications out into 40,000 applications out to teachers, and they hoped to get a lot of response. They got 11,000 actual applications back, and they did their selection process by letting each state's Department of Education narrow the applications from their state down to 2 finalists that were then chosen from among. And the school I went to at that time, one of the 4th grade teachers, which was the grade I was in when this was happening, was selected as one of the 2 finalists for our state. So I was in a 4th grade with 3 teachers teaching 4th grade in the school. It wasn't my 4th grade teacher, but it was one of the 3 4th grade teachers at my school that was selected from the state I lived in at that time. And so our school in particular had a really vested interest in hyping this all up. And he especially was, very much into sharing all of that space excitement. So,
how far in advance was the hype?
I don't know, because it's like I'm not going to have very specific memories of this one year out of my life, especially since there was big changes in my life that happened within a year's time of all of this happening. So that got muddled in time. Like, I moved states to start the next school year. So, yeah, I'm not going to remember those kind of details about how soon, how much of the year was consumed with space fever or whatever. But it was, unlike other points in history might be, in elementary schools all over the country, space studies were a much higher priority than they were probably ever before or since, especially given how this all plays out. Anyway, in January 28th, 1986, there on televisions all over the country, kids were gathered around to watch the teacher, Krista McAuliffe, go into space. And if you know what happened, it's during liftoff, the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded. Right there, live on TV, and all 7 people on board were killed. And details, it took a long investigation to find out exactly what happened and what the circumstances and situation were for those on board when they died. But it was a big deal. It changed the nature of how Americans felt about space. It wasn't the first disaster for the space program. There had been others before that. This new technology stuff is dealing with, controlled humongous explosions. This is all very volatile stuff. Space exploration is not safe. There is no safety. There's no safety in race car driving. There's no safety in space exploration. And this was so hyped up that it really took a hit. This shuttle program after that they put a pause on that for 32 months afterwards. So, that's over 2.5 years that there were no shuttles, no more shuttle missions, and none of that. And it gave me a more intimate feeling about space going into playing this game. And it changed the whole feeling of when that teacher came back, because all the finalists got to go to Florida to watch the launch in person. So we were all watching, hoping maybe to see our teacher on TV in the crowd of, they had a whole big media thing that went along with the shuttle launch and all that stuff, promoting the teachers and promoting the Teacher in Space project and all of that. And then disaster strikes and they have to keel back and change all their plans and everything. And when our teacher came back and they did the planned assembly that they were all ready to do, with our whole school assembled to see the presentation made by the teacher who was a runner-up to go to space, had a much different feel than anybody would have expected. And he still gave the presentation and everything, but, there had to be a moment of silence included, because life doesn't always play out like you plan. So anyway, 10-year-old me didn't get scared away from the experience of loving space anyway, because I still had a deep interest in astronomy and just space in general. That didn't die. I've always been fascinated by, moons in particular, trying to figure out how many moons Jupiter and Saturn really have, that kind of thing. And going to observatories every time we went on vacation and getting to see what we can see. And then, the movie Contact really was fun for me. But anyway, that little bit that not everybody knows about the Challenger disaster, or if they do, they only know vaguely, but it's a lot more intimate to me. And while it didn't kill my love of space, it does flavor it with a lot more fear than I might have had otherwise. So that brings us into Outer Wilds and how immersive Outer Wilds was, because Outer Wilds really feels viscerally while I'm playing just like I imagined real space exploration would feel on a video game scale. But yeah, the pull of gravity letting go just feels like I imagined it would feel. And I know it's still imagining, so but I'm just smiling, even though, this is a fear episode. I don't know if smiling's appropriate, but loving the mechanics of Outer Wilds, because never once did my movement outside of just learning to jump ever pull me out of the story or pull me out of the experience where I'm thinking about, oh, I'm playing a video game. I'm like, no, I'm trying to make a jump. I'm trying to get from here to there and all of that. It's so much more easy to focus on the storytelling that's happening, which makes me more susceptible to the fear, makes me more open to the things that are going to happen in this story. And there's lots of reasons to be afraid.
Yeah, I can name like an entire planet. Looking at you, Dark Bramble. I'm looking at you. Mm-hmm.
With
side eye
is palatable, yeah. there's a lot of side eye going on there.
Because, like, of course, that's only one kind of fear. This game is full of it. We were talking about, like, multiple kinds of fear earlier. There's, like, existential fear, because, you know, the game has a time loop in it. You inherently have existential fear in that.
So, yeah, your solar system is ending every 22 minutes, and it only gets worse when you find out it's doing that naturally.
Yeah, it's like no matter what you do, even if you hadn't known this was happening, even if the Nomai hadn't come to your solar system, this would still be happening right now.
Yeah, the Nomai technology just gives you a broader access to context, not the ability to change anything. So, you know, it begs the question, does knowledge ease fear or enhance fear? I would say it does both in very different ways.
It's like, you know, if you want to end up being more afraid of knowing or not knowing, it's okay, you get to do both.
Oh god, I think that's worse. I think we found the worst one. Knowing and not knowing at the same time. Ding 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 ding.
So, I mean, you know, fear in Outer Wilds can, you know, stretch a lot of different places, as big as, you know, the world is going to end and there's nothing you can do to stop it, you're going to get eaten by a giant monster, or even the fear of knowing that there may or may not be a rock behind you when you turn around.
Yeah, and later, how many aliens are in the dark, you know?
Yeah.
And where are they? And am I going to know where they are with enough time to get away?
Even then, like, which of these things I see is going to kill me?
Even if that death isn't even a death in a way that the time loop deaths are deaths, I don't know. It's just like, I'm scared to die, but I'm also going to survive it in a very real way because of the time loops, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, no, it's just weird thinking about all the fear. So let's focus back on first the existential dread, because I think that that's like the umbrella that all of the rest of it has to exist on. Yeah. And the rest is like spices that are added on top.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you remember the first time the sun exploded?
Yeah. Me and Sackbot were on the Addle Rock, and we were at the eye locator.
You know, we were exploring the Nomai ruins on the planet. And it's like a planetoid. Big sphere thing in space that is like going around a sun, even if it's going around something else that's going around the sun.
Anyway.
So yeah, it's like, you know, as an experience I have seen play out multiple times, just on the Idle Rock minding your own business and this music starts playing.
So, yeah, this is nice. I mean, the sun's pretty red, but this music's nice.
It's a little ominous.
It's like, they show you the life cycle of a star in the museum, which is, you know, the beginning of the game, which is, you know, of course they do. Of course they do. But it's like, I don't even remember what it was, but, you know, I made some kind of quip about that, and then, of course, watch the sun going through it. It's like, wait, is it actually going to blow up? Okay, yep, it is happening. Uh-oh.
And my first thought is like, aliens did this, didn't they? Those aliens did this. I just, like, oh, dang, aliens. Just like...
Aliens.
Yeah. But also, you know, in that, you know, it plays into my relationship also with my broader acceptance, understanding of space that, you know, stems from early childhood for me, because that was the first time I really thought about human legacy as being kind of unimportant on the galactic scale. Like, maybe nothing humans ever do is going to make a difference, and it's all going to be destroyed when our sun, soul, I guess is what they've decided to label it, when our sun starts to go through this process, it's going to expand, to the point where it absorbs the orbits of the first 3 planets. It'll be so big, it will literally absorb us. It won't explode then. That'll just be its swell phase.
We don't even get to watch the sun nuke the entire system.
And that process would probably take more than a human lifetime to happen, so...
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, if any humans were still on the planet then, we could watch it at least for a little bit, eat mercury, and then it'd probably get too hot.
I have no idea. I mean, there's no way... I mean, maybe a physicist could do it, but putting it into a video game and making it make some sort of sense, I don't want them to do that. It's like, I don't care that the things that we're observing and that are happening in this game aren't going to physically make sense in the way that the cosmos really work, because they work so hard on making the mechanics of the movements and the relationships work so well that it serves the purpose.
Yeah, and, this allows us to live through that fear of, oh, our sun's gonna die someday.
It's not even just that it's going to change and destroy the Earth. It is, in and of itself, it's just gonna die.
Which, if you were having any trouble coping with the idea that you as an individual are going to die, the normal human, happens to everybody if you live long enough, existential crisis. Oh, not only am I going to die, but everything I've ever perceived is going to end. How do you feel significant enough to invest in continuing under said circumstances? It's everything feels so important to me and so immediate to me, and I have such big feelings about my plans and my future and all of this stuff, right? In the face of the fact that it's all going to end and it's all going to be erased. Erased. There will be no archaeology digging up my bones and telling my story. My planet is going to be eaten by its own sun.
Sounds like some serious family issues. I'm glad I won't be alive to see that play out.
I'm facepalming.
Yeah, that's just the thing about, existential dread is for each terrifying looming giant of fear, there is another one that towers over it.
In this case, for you, I feel like this metaphor is self-inflicted, alright? The fear latent in that sentence did not need to be here, It's not inherent in the sun exploding.
Point is, every time you try and track down the thing that is going to invalidate your existence, there's something that invalidates that thing's existence as well.
Up and down the chain, big and small. Yeah, at some point, everything that you think of as having meaning loses all meaning. Time itself included. So there's that existential dread, which is re-emphasized every 20 minutes when the song starts playing. It's did you guys have any patterns of behavior that you noticed yourself falling into as you played loop after loop after loop? Was there anything that was happening for you when the sun started doing its thing? Did it induce panic? What did it do to you?
Well, at first I was very, strict on time management, but I also became a lot more hasty, a lot more reckless. You've seen how reckless I fly.
Yep. Oh, yeah. It was shocking to me the first couple times I watched you fly. I'm oh, okie dokie then. We're not waiting to escape gravity before we just take off sideways. It doesn't matter if I crash back into Timberhearth, I'll just restart the loop. No problem. It doesn't matter if I land on the Addle Rock. That's fine.
It's a show for Esker. Woo! Look at them fireworks. There goes my limbs.
Okay, great. You wanna make sure everybody has the experience of watching a spaceship blow the fuck up. Great. It's very kind of you.
But if you... So... Talking about the existential dread that is represented in the sun exploding and then realizing that the whole universe is ending, just for me makes me think again of when I first heard that the sun was going to not just kill everyone on the planet, that it's going to erase everything we ever knew, everything we ever built, all record of it aside from signals that escape us unless we, like, colonize more of the universe before it happens, which I have very different feelings about than I did when I when I was a kid in grade school. But I'm not going to get into those right now. But there is something to be said about the grief that happens when you have to renegotiate with your own brain what eternity is, what forever is. And, you know, things that I had been conceptually taught that forever was a thing that existed, that time as I knew it was going to go on forever, and that humans were going to have a place in it. And to have the life cycle of our sun teach me that no, that's actually not the case.
We're not going to have a place in time. We're going to have a moment in time.
Right. And the moment's all we get.
Well, that's fear on a macrocosm.
Right.
So then we've got stuff like, you know, fear of getting hurt, bodily harm. This game's also pretty full of that.
So it's like, you know, an experience I had to confront going into Outer Wilds was just, you know, having to go through, like, zero gravity training and whatnot, and just not at all being good at it.
Oh, yeah. That was panic-inducing.
So it's like you're just kind of setting up to go into space when you really, really don't feel qualified for it.
Yeah. For me, that was also fueled by a lot of fictional space narratives, where spacewalks are always inherently dangerous. They're always horror-inducing plot elements. Mm-hmm. It's like...
Oh no, there's a hole in your suit!
Or if you just get cut off from that, it's like even if you survive, you're gonna wish you didn't.
Right. You know, and that's where my fear really, really lied, which isn't touched on at all in Outer Wilds because of the shortened distances and the time loop itself. I never felt like I was going to get lost out in space, no matter whether or not I was able to handle zero-G or not. But when you're doing the zero-G training, you have no idea that you're going to be caught in a time loop. You have no idea that there's going to be a game mechanic tether that's going to anchor you right back to your solar system and to what you're doing. So, yeah, in that little window when you're doing the tutorial, that fear of being capable is palpable. At least it was for me.
Yeah, you like sort of have to, you know, everybody has these expectations of you that you need to go out and you'll go do space stuff, and it's like, yeah, you have the fear of not being able to take that on. You know, any unpleasant feelings you might have about space travel going wrong is like, chances are, and in the face of an actual space problem, that's going to be the least of your worries. It's like, yeah, it's another thing where it's like, what you're afraid of right now may very well be irrelevant.
Let's smack face first into a cave wall. Let's see how that works.
Or land on the moon with the wrong side of the ship.
Oh, yeah. As long as you don't do it too hard, it's not going to be a problem, but yeah.
Like, there's so many physical things in this game that can kill you.
And hell, it's like, well, it didn't happen to any of us. It's like, yeah, I've seen what happens if you take off your seatbelt a bit too soon.
Really?
Yeah.
You just bonk your head on the ceiling, right?
It's almost like those are there for a reason to protect you from something. So, yeah, I get in the time loop, you're gonna end up being a bit too eager to fly directly into certain doom, but, or at least highly likely doom. You get comfortable doing incredibly dangerous things.
Right. And that's only reemphasized when you really start to think about how jerry-rigged the whole Harthian space program is. It's like, I've got a spaceship that's partially made of wood and there's literal duct tape on my suit.
Like, you know, you can do manual repairs on your spaceship to get its systems working again on the fly. It doesn't even take up, like, a significant portion of your 22 minutes. Those can't be too thorough if you can do it so fast.
You're also probably using at least a little bit of fire or heat on your wooden ship, so that's fun to think about.
It's like, you know, it's kind of a miracle. It's like, your spaceship can blow up sometimes if you damage it in the wrong way, and it's like, it's kind of a miracle that doesn't happen more often.
Yeah, I think I only blew up the ship one time, and I'm trying to remember the circumstances of it, and I can't. But I didn't even know it was going to blow up. It really surprised me when it did. I'm like, oh gosh, I really did a number on it this time, and I get out, and I'm going to go look at it, and I walk away for a second, and boom!
Yeah, I don't remember how many times the ship's blown up for us, but, like, after a certain point of damage, we just get out and leave it, and we're just like, alright, we're here now.
If you're not anywhere you want to do anything, you just restart the loop and try again.
You just pull out the whole bag of marshmallows and like, alright, I want to see anybody roast more than this at a time.
I want a flaming ball of sugar before the cycle's over.
Yeah. And that was kind of my coping mechanism for dealing with the existential dread, was going to hang out on Timberhearth, like I've said. It's like, spend most of a loop just listening to that guitar-based theme and watching the sun rise and set and looking at the geysers and thinking about the water and knowing that these other characters don't know anything about what's going to happen or what has happened to them. And then later on, there's the mind-boggling, I don't know if it's fear or whatever, but the horror of realizing that this has happened 9 million times before.
And if you don't stop it, it'll happen 9 million more!
Oh man, it's like, how many canonical space missions has my character been through that have gone wrong in all those times?
Yeah, because, like, however you die in that first loop, technically that's how you've died 9 million times.
Oh no!
Yeah, like, did you even get to see the sun explode? Did you walk into ghost matter?
Oh, I forgot all about the ghost matter being something to be afraid of. It's like, it's there the whole time. And, because there is that whole, like, do I need to be afraid that what got the Nomai is going to get me?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, they weren't prepared, and they're tons technically more advanced than we are.
It's like they were all minding their own business when they were dead. It's like, they did not know what was coming to get them.
And it wasn't personal. It just was. Just natural kind of disaster on top of end of the universe. On top of just space travel in general being dangerous. Yeah, you can run out of air, take bodily harm, crash your ship, get crushed to death in the sand.
Drown in the sea.
Can you drown in the sea?
I mean, yeah, technically. If you're on an island that has trees and then you jump off of it, I mean, it's not like you would have your pack to keep you afloat. You'd kind of just start to sink, I think.
don't know what happens if you jump into, like, try and take a swim in Giant's Deep without your suit.
Road trip! Wait, no.
Let me see. We should try that later.
And anyway, yeah, it's like, there's so many things that can happen outside of Dark Bramble, which is, like, made of fear.
Yeah, that's like the scary themed planet in and of itself, but...
That's like the fear of being hunted, of something coming after you, kind of.
You're stuck in this impossible space that is super disorienting, and there are things there that will eat you alive for a small mistake.
And they're not interested in negotiating with you. You cannot talk to them, or you just have to avoid them.
The only thing they will ever see you as is food. Figuratively speaking. Technically, it will be all they hear you as is food.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So does it make their eyes more unsettling knowing they're vestigial?
No. There are lots of, like, blind creatures IRL that, like, have their vestigial eyes that I think are still kind of cute.
Well, yeah, that's a general statement. Like, anglerfish, though, these things.
Well, I mean, if you look at the small one in the museum, and you don't have any context about how big it's gonna get, is it cute?
No.
Well, I mean, it's cute by comparison to an adult one, but that's not saying much.
You guys are still scared of it?
Well, I know if that one's ever gonna hurt me, I really have to be trying. It's like, if it's possible, I've never seen it.
Yeah, as far as I could tell, you couldn't elicit a reaction out of it or anything. Like, I shot the scout right at the cage to see, because I was just trying to navigate Dark Bramble for the first time, so I'm like, okay, I got an idea. What if I can get them to follow the scout by shooting the scout out, right? And then so I tried to test it out on the captive one, and the captive one did not respond at all. Like, okay.
Well, I mean, it's been on public display for who knows how long. It might be more picky about what it goes after.
Oh yeah, I bet there's so many Hearthians tapping on that glass. These Hearthians we're talking about, they don't...
Where did they get it?
I don't know.
I mean, I love that it's in the museum and all of that, but it's just like, it leaves me with more questions than answers, for sure.
It's like, is that thing gonna grow up? I mean, it could take a while. I mean, the environment of Dark Bramble on the inside is incredibly stagnant. You know, the time scale of an anglerfish has a lot of room to go very slowly in there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So bodily harm is a thing that you could be afraid of. It's a thing to entice fear. What else? What other ways does this...
Well, there's the fear of the unknown. Because what you don't know the full extent of.
There's a lot we don't know.
Exactly.
Even the more technologically advanced than our player character, Nomai, didn't know a lot. We know what science they were doing and the things they were learning, which means there's a hell of a lot they didn't know.
Yeah, it's like anything they didn't understand was a goal for them.
Yeah, meanwhile for us, like, we have to piggyback off of everything that they did, pretty much.
Yeah.
So, anything that they don't know, we don't know, and that could be kinda unsettling.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, do you want to confront this huge mystery that the comparatively technological geniuses that came before you couldn't figure out?
And how much success are you going to have? Especially when you got 22 minutes.
You have an infinite number of 22 minutes. Is it still gonna be enough?
There's a lot you can't learn in 22-minute windows that recycle themselves. It's just... while it's a new 22 minutes to us... Yeah, it's a recycled... Is that the same word I used?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not an infinite set of 22 minutes. It is the 22 minutes on loop.
Yeah, and, like, we're also supposed to at least have some fear of the eye. We don't know anything about it, really, except for, like, some speculation, which they are setting up to be, like, at least somewhat founded through quantum observations, but, like, even then you get to see, a Nomai questioning if the eye is harmful.
It's like, what if that whole bit where they flew their vessel directly into the aforementioned Dark Bramble was a very deliberate thing?
It's a ploy!
What if the eye was trying to lead them into danger?
And we can't guarantee that the eye has no idea.
Cause it's like, to jump back to the DLC for a bit, it's like, the thing they used to get the vision from the Eye of the Universe was the same thing you used to communicate with the prisoner. It is the thing that allows minds to interface, and they got a response from the Eye of the Universe with it.
Which, you can jump to any conclusions you want to. It doesn't mean you're limited to one conclusion, though, about that.
That's what sentient life forms use to communicate with each other, so that is evidence that, the Eye of the Universe,
at least has some compatibility with what the strangers see as sentience.
Or communication.
Right.
It has an equivalent mind to be interfaced with their technology.
I would say maybe they have a probe, like a warning sign. The eye might be that, and it responds with pre-programmed messages as to what it is. And just say, but
it could be, a mind of its own. It could be more of a, some kind of emulation.
A naturally occurring program.
Maybe.
So even when we see it all through, there's a lot about the Eye of the Universe we don't know.
It can still be, like I've said before, an amalgamation of everything that is possible to happen, and also be other things. It could have an entirely different origin. It could be made out of a living organism. We don't know.
It could be the communication hub of the universe itself. It could be the universe itself communicating that it's going to die.
What if it's not the eye of the universe? What if it's the heart?
Or the mouth.
We have some reason to believe some of the religions that were built around it kind of believed it was the belly button.
Okay, well, we can get into that a little bit more next episode. But
yeah, I know, I just wanted to do that dumb bit while we were here.
Yeah.
Like, is this because of, like... Okay, maybe I don't get it.
I'm not sure I get it either.
Alright, cool. It's the feeling's mutual then. Got it.
Alrighty then. So, I'm just trying to think about, how does the game use fear? What does it bring to your experience? It definitely deepens the intensity of the feelings. It adds tension that, rather than just exploring a Minecraft world, right? Especially like I did, where you explore with monsters off. They could have done that. They could have had a solar system that you just explore at your leisure in your little spaceship and left it at that, and had these things that you can find, and no death of the universe, no time loops, any of that. But what does this fear element add to player experience?
It definitely adds to mystery, I think. With the potential for there to have stuff go wrong, mystery has more impact, it has more depth. Like, there's theoretically consequences.
And it's like, of course, you have this sort of thing where, you might kind of set up to easily speculate that, something the Nomai did is blowing up the sun.
Yeah.
So it's like this, the mystery is kind of also a part of the thing you're afraid of.
Oh, yeah. Like, if you figure out what it is, are you even going to be able to stop it? And will you blame yourself? There's that fear of failure, the fear of letting everybody down by not figuring this thing out, and not saving Timberhearth, not saving your universe.
Mm-hmm.
When you realize it's the universe at stake, and the layers of that, and then ending up right back in the existential dread of it's actually hopeless anyway, no matter what you do. No matter how much you flail, no matter how much fear you face, no matter how much mystery you solve, the ending is a version of the same. At least for the solar system. The solar system ends. The universe it's in ends.
Yeah, and that can be a fear of change. Like, if we're gonna go, give examples that are, grounded in reality, sometimes even these fear of change isn't even about death, Like, oh, no, my parents are getting a divorce. What can I do to stop this? And you can't. Not usually. There's, nothing you can do.
You just have to, journey into the unknown and go into the eye of marriage and post-marriage and create a new universe where the two people are separate.
Thank goodness. I'm just gonna say that. Just thank goodness.
But yeah, that can, feel like a big fundamental part of your existence, that your parents are acting as a parental unit together, and then they're not that anymore.
Yeah, and that change is unavoidable, and, eventually you have to face it and maybe find the good in the change, and there's a lot that resembles that with, Outer Wilds and its ending, where stuff is changing, you can't stop it, so embrace the change, embrace the new.
I mean, it can come down to something as simple as just, well, it's... I don't know, I have another example I don't think I need.
That just makes it more mysterious. Does that make me afraid of it?
I don't know, are you afraid of everything you don't know?
I don't know, am I?
No, not generally. You actually happen to be probably the boldest among the three of us.
It's like, that's the fear of the unknown, is you don't know if the thing you don't know about is dangerous.
Yeah, I'm just saying, you've been less afraid of the ocean, you're more open to, learning how to surf. I boogie boarded one time and was terrified I almost drowned. I don't know if I almost drowned or not, but there was a bit there where I was not so sure I was going to have the strength to make it back to shore.
Yeah, I was more of I don't want to do this because I don't like water in my nose.
Very valid, but that's not fear-based, which is cool.
Yeah.
And you also aren't afraid of moving really fast because you also were the one of us that was more open to skiing, too. It's just there's something about the way your brain works that makes you more... Sackbot and I are more risk-averse than you are. And we won't get into value judgments around what those things mean, But it's of the three of us, you're the feldspar.
Yeah, although to be fair, I did get kind of scared of skiing after I crashed into a tree. So...
Yeah, that was an interesting phone call to receive when that happened.
Of course, it's less crashing into a tree. It's more of sliding off the slope, rolling into a tree, and getting caught by another tree.
Yeah. Lots of story times in the fear episode. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, that story doesn't, haunt me at all, since, you came back from it, just, you outline all those things that went wrong, but yeah, you're, physically speaking, more or less unharmed.
Oh, yeah, my side hurt a lot. I couldn't really sit up, but I think I was still smiling and laughing.
Oh, yeah, you were. You're like, yeah, now I know what happens when you crash when you ski, is what you told me. Now I know the procedures. It's less scary to me now. And I'm like, no. And like, I don't know if this is necessarily the lesson that we want to take. I mean, I'm glad you're not living in fear. I'm glad you're not like me and inhibited from having, exciting experiences. And I'm more averse to them now than I was even then. But, yeah, I imagine you are as well. But at the time, it's just like, oh, okay, that's a takeaway. It's like, feldspar indeed.
That is a logical thing you could walk away from that scenario with, sure.
And I have always taught you to find, the good in any experience that you're having, so you can,
It's like, yeah, these paramedics, this is how you interact with them. Look, they're people.
They are. They're not aliens or robots in poofy suits going to behave robotically. They're going to be people who are going to look at you as another person, and they're going to hope to help you. Yeah, I'm sure that was a lot, because you'd never even really had a medical emergency before. So,
no, and I hadn't.
Yeah, and hadn't never been in a car wreck or any of that, so...
Yeah, and I was lucky enough that all that happened was I got a really big bruise. Oh yeah, and I physically hurt my side, like...
That was part of the really big bruise.
Oh, no, that was my ego.
Oh. For some people, that is a significant enough thing to be really fear-inducing. I know it doesn't apply to you so much, but for some people that really is. That's enough to, elicit a fear response and a fear reaction to things because they're worried about that exact kind of injury.
Yeah.
That somebody's going to think less of them because they had a skiing accident. They fell down or made a mistake or all those kinds of things. And it's interesting how context is everything about how, the things that make me afraid don't necessarily make you afraid, even though we have a lot of shared history.
Yeah, and thinking about, like, how I reacted to these paramedics and knowing, like, oh yeah, this is the procedure. That actually did kind of leak into my Outer Wilds experience, where I'm just like, oh yeah, this is what happens when you die. Yeah. So what if I just, push my luck in a different direction this time? What if I slam my ship really hard into it at a different angle?
Yeah, and we have identified the Nomai among us.
Oh,
Yeah.
am I Nomai or am I Feldspar?
Well, when we are doing the which Outer Wild species are you, you're Nomai. When we're doing which Hearthian are you, you're Feldspar.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the difference between Extreme Nomai and Feldspar is that, Hearthians do stunts. Nomai do experiments.
That is true. A lot of my stuff was experimental of how far can I push this.
Meanwhile, I also remember your guys' jaw dropping at the way I handled Dark Bramble.
Oh god, I could never!
I learned things about Dark Bramble that they couldn't have, because I approached it so differently. I'm one of the very rare people who, even within a 22-minute time loop, utilized patience.
I cannot emphasize how slow Giggleklutz was drifting through Dark Bramble every single time. Like, almost all the momentum was just from entering Dark Bramble. There was almost nothing else. Just that slow drift, slightly corrected in the correct direction. I don't know how long it took you, but I'm gonna estimate less than 20 minutes.
That's not an estimate. You know that's a fact. You're not estimating that. Never was I attempting this and didn't either get to a destination or get eaten by an anglerfish. Never did the sun explode while I was trying to do this. But anyway, yeah, that was definitely fear-inducing, and I started being able to do it with my eyes closed. I'm like, okay, I'm going, but I can't watch. And so I wouldn't, and I found out how close you can actually get to an anglerfish on more than one occasion. And also that, in case you didn't know, you can see the glow on your little display of status of your ship. Any glow it receives close by will actually show up as a glow spot in the direction that it is. So once the glow spot went away, I knew I was far enough away to actually use some engine, and then the anglerfish wouldn't be able to hear me anymore. Because apparently that fog does deafen sound after a certain amount of distance.
I mean, it's like, you know, the anglerfish are breathing. That means they must be breathing something, right?
Yeah.
And not to mention the fact that they can hear you in there.
Yes,
Well,
it's not a vacuum.
I mean, I understand that they would, you know, be a bit more loose with that thing. That's usually stuff that doesn't make the cut to fiction. Is
Yeah.
that there's no sound in space.
Right. It's like, they play fast and loose with that, and that's fine. It's a video game, not a, you know, and it's not one that's claiming to be a true space simulator. It just does so much true space simulation really, really well. But yeah, so you can suffocate, the sun's blown up, you can get eaten by anglerfish, you can get crushed to death by sand, you can get stabbed by cactuses, you
Can melt on Hollow's lantern.
or the sun itself. You can get flung off into space and run out of air.
You can forget to put on your suit and run out of air.
You can you can get got by the ghost matter.
Yeah. But I mean, all of those boil down to fear of bodily harm / death. Right? I mean, they all kind of fit. I mean, the existential dread is a different thing, and the fear of being stalked is a little bit different thing. It's not just the death itself isn't so scary. It's the mindless creature not caring about you that feels so scary, at least to me.
Yeah, and I mean, like, of course, there's also the ones that aren't mindless, but
Right. Which we haven't really touched on that at all. It's like the maliciousness of being hunted down by the occupants of the stranger is terrifying. And, you know, of course, to them, I'm sure you're terrifying too. You're not supposed to exist. They hadn't interacted with anybody else.
potentially ever.
Yeah.
Probably ever.
Probably through generations unrecorded. Like, they didn't give us access to a record of them interacting with anyone before they left.
As far as they know, they were alone in the universe. Potentially.
Even if that's not true in their, you know, actual history even. We wouldn't know, and they probably wouldn't either if they chose to forget it.
Right. Which we can get into a whole tirade and something else besides the fear episode about. Well, I guess we can touch on it just a second, is that, you know, nothing besides fear really could want you to have that much control over your own history, you know? I mean, what else would... Only fear would cause them to redact so much. Well, I guess embarrassment, but embarrassment on that level is akin to a fear.
Yeah, isn't some, like, embarrassments... Doesn't it share a lot of the same threads as fear anyway?
Oh, yeah. Because it ties into things like fear of abandonment. You know, exile and not
fear
belonging,
of mockery,
which is social exile.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, ooh, has more to do with like ego death, you know, an ego injury like we were talking about before. And while it seems like the Harthians and the Nomai are kind of immune to that, I don't think the Strangers culture would be, you know. And of course, we playing the game and interacting with those cultures will, you know, have our own feelings about those kinds of things. And of course, we're only... Well, you're interacting with what is presumably a dead culture, right? Up until a certain point. I mean, how fear-inducing is it to walk into and be basically visually ambushed by a circle of mummies? I mean,
Yeah, and there's something about, like, you know, facing something's, like, mortal form before you face their actual intent and personness like that, where, like, oh, like, you have time to rationalize, okay, it's just a corpse, you know? A corpse can't hurt you in a meaningful way. If it's going to inflict any harm on you, it's probably going to be either what killed it or what ate it. Like, if there's, like, bacteria or whatever still around.
Or if you end up, if it falls on you, or
Yeah.
it itself gets flung as any inanimate object might harm you.
Yes.
It's like something is intentionally or unintentionally weaponizing the remains against you if it's attacking you.
Yeah, exactly. A skeleton typically does not hurt you. What used to be, what that skeleton used to be, however, that can hurt you. That can have a desire to hurt you.
Ultimately, when you get into the horror section of the DLC, it's like very much you're getting into somebody else's turf. You're the stranger now, and they don't want you. The anglerfish are trying to lure you in.
Yeah.
It's like it's for a hostile intent, but you are in some sense welcome there.
Ooh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh boy. That thought just leaves such a bad taste in my mouth.
These are both unsettling, but in complete opposite directions.
It's like the anglerfish in a, natural, not comfortable or moral sort of way are relying on you.
Or anything else that...
They're sitting there trying to lure things in so they can eat them.
Yeah, and I mean, like, when you go to the strangers, like, what do they have to gain by killing you except for relief that, you're gone? It's difficult to say, like, how you could necessarily even hurt them in this dream world if you just are interacting as a person, If you wanted to, like, walk around and watch their slide reels and that's it, I mean, like... Mm-hmm. Unless, there is actually something to hide on those slide reels. I mean, it should be fine for you to just chill, but they don't want to take that risk.
No. And so for them, the fear of the unknown appears to be extreme. Like us playing a game where we're leaning into mystery, and probably the joy of mystery, if you're anything like me, or almost anyone else I've ever seen play this game, mystery is one of the biggest joys of playing in Outer Wilds. It's like, what else can I find out? Where do I have to go to find it out? What platform puzzle do I have to play to figure out and be able to navigate and to grind to be able to do? It encourages you to dismiss that fear of the unknown.
It's like it is very much framed as a big accomplishment, and it is to, just finally get to the center of Giant's Deep. It's like, what is it even like down there? And it turns out, there is actually kind of a solid planet in the center. You just wouldn't know.
Kind of coral-like. And that's about it.
I really don't remember. I was having that same 0G cave panic when I was down there. I was so terrified I was going to not have enough time to find what I needed in there while having trouble navigating enough to get in the door. I had to have Honeyshuckle help me. I couldn't get in there. But
doesn't help that it does lie to you. It says 0G. It's not actually. It's still pulling you down, and that makes it really weird to control.
No wonder. Okay,
yeah.
Well, because I wasn't compensating for that. Then, and also there's, like, nothing to push off of either in the same way. Because of my timidness, I would say, that I kind of got over in... The planet names are all blending together in my brain again. I was going to call it Hollow Bramble, and it's not.
It would not be your first.
I know, but this time I was saying it carefully so you didn't make fun of me. In Bramble Hollow. No, I did it again. Brittle Hollow. In Brittle Hollow. It just, I got so good at navigating Whitehole Station that I was expecting that being down there was going to be the same. And when it wasn't, I freaked out. Like, I'm so good at that, I can almost do that with my eyes closed. And I'm in there, you watched me. I'm like, you do this dance. You step forward, and then I back up. It was like a speedrun strat. Which, of course, no speedrunner's ever going to end up in Whitehole Station.
We'll just have to get together and make that a category.
Well, here's the thing. There is, all, ship's log. 100%. And I think there is a ship's log.
There is, yeah.
Yeah, for Whitehole Station. So, they would go there, actually, in a 100%.
In a 100%, yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. I've got my little embarrassment smile on. Because I'm not super coordinated in life or in video games. So me doing all this puzzle platforming stuff, I actually impressed myself. But anyway, that doesn't necessarily fit in the fear episode. But actually it kind of does. Because trying to make those jumps did make me afraid. I'm fighting past fears and trauma too of being laughed at while I tried new things. Of having to learn new skills in front of other people and not measuring up to the capabilities of the people around me or the expectations of the people who are trying to teach me, that kind of thing, and all that plays together. And, it's a fear thing that I brought to it that's not inherent in it, but it did affect me, and it's a point of pride and a small growing joy that I have been able to conquer fear and conquer some of the hesitancy I have as I got bolder and bolder in playing the game, and that I'm less afraid to play in front of you guys, even if you're going to make fun of me, which you do less and less, especially if it really is seeming to hurt me. But
I want it to be playful. I don't want it to be shaming.
I know. Which is why we'll make jokes right back if you're getting close to the line.
Is there anything else we wanted to cover today?
Well, just a little bit as we're talking about Fear of the Unknown, let's talk about how people react to the quantum objects. In the main game, that's the only jump scare that you're going to have.
When I said fear of there may or may not being a rock behind you when you turn around, let's get back to that.
Right.
Yeah, I think, in our experience, one of the first times that actually happened to us was on Timber Hearth, that shard.
Which one? In the Grove or in the museum?
The Grove. The museum one is fine. It's just kind of oh, whoa, that's kind of cool and weird. I wonder how this is going to be relevant later. And then you find the shard on Timber Hearth, and it's not only are all the trees moving, but then, this sign is also moving, and then this giant rock is moving, and it can be right behind you.
Yeah, I found it incredibly unsettling. It's oh.
When the majority of visual landmarks are unstable like that.
Mm-hmm. The ground is the only thing that's stable.
Yeah, and that appears to be a very universal player experience. I was watching a streamer the other day who was really cursing at the quantum shards. It's okay, Rock, you stay right where you are. No, don't you follow me. And that kind of thing. And, and kind of swearing at them and that kind of stuff. And for me, I started off with that fear. And then when I got over it, it was, oh, hello, quantum friend. Oh, it's nice to see you for a minute. Oh, now you're gone.
Yeah, I could still get jump scared by them sometimes, where it's what's that dark shape in the corner of my vision?
Hello!
I don't know why, but to me they feel curious. They are somewhat sneaking up on you, trying to get closer to you.
Well, we'll never know.
No.
And, this is the only one that can really, sneak up to you quite that closely, except for maybe Giant's Deep's one.
I'm thinking about the one that was inside Ember Twin.
Well, that one has 3 spots it can be, really, so it doesn't necessarily sneak up on you.
Oh, right? It has several spots it can be in each of those spots, though.
Yeah, plus it's pretty cramped, and that rock is big. It's deliberately supposed to be big enough to stand on comfortably. As comfortably as you can on a large quantum object.
You could probably sleep on it. It's like a bed-shaped rock.
That's not what bedrock means.
It's not?
No.
I've been playing Minecraft all wrong!
I'm looking at you in sus. So anyway, that was another, demonstration of fear of the unknown playing out through these quantum objects, which just adds a whole nother layer of, things to worry about at the end of the universe.
What is this? Why is it doing the things that it does? Is it even possible to figure that out? And where is it right now?
Right. Well, once I found out that it wasn't going to hurt you, it wasn't going to squish you, the worst it was going to do was startle you, I stopped being afraid. It started feeling more like a friend's dog. I know you, so you might hurt me accidentally, but I don't think there's any intention to harm me here. So while I may have feelings about what happens, there's a safety or a security in knowing that harm is not intended, which I felt around the quantum objects after a while. Especially when, at that point, I'm working so hard to get to the quantum moon, right? Which I also had the added benefit of trying to keep silent guides along with me for my entire journey who'd already been on it before. And there were certain things that the kids were excited about and not afraid of, and the quantum moon absolutely fit in that category. So I never had any fear at all of the quantum moon. I can't speak for anybody else. Maybe have having fear. of the quantum moon. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think by the time you get to that point, you have enough understanding of the quantum that it's not really that scary anymore.
Well, and for me, it was like the Nomai talk about it, and none of them sound afraid. Nobody sounds scared of the quantum moon. They may or may not be scared of the eye, but no one sounds scared of the quantum moon.
It unites the people.
Is that your Solanum voice?
No.
I don't know. So, I think that's a pretty good overview of the use of fear, and fear as a theme in Outer Wilds.
And some of what we deem scary as individuals.
You know, we all find different parts of this experience unsettling. Yeah, Shuckle couldn't do the stealth in the DLC, but I am still scared of the anglerfish.
And yeah, I can do the anglerfish, but I haven't done the stealth stuff either. I'm kind of trying to get myself geared up together to do it by myself later, but with time pressures and excitement about getting to the point where we could record these episodes, I just wanted to get through it so I could have a full picture to start having discussions. And anyway, I think we're going to wrap up this discussion on fear. Feel free to drop comments, either here or on the blog, about things that we could have covered, or things that you thought were scary that we didn't, or if you were surprised that we were afraid by things that didn't scare you at all. We'd love to hear from you.
What are you afraid of?
What if it's the dark?
Well, then we got some horror for you if you enjoy being afraid. Because yeah, go ahead and get that DLC if you're afraid of the dark and that kind of fear is fun for you. The stealth sections really, oh my god. Any fear of the dark I have was definitely hard during all sections. Well, a lot of sections of The Stranger, like trying to find the hull breach. Mm-hmm. Where you're working in very dim light. I mean, there's not enough light there to really get a handle on scale. Everything's a lot bigger than I'm imagining it is while I'm trying to navigate this. Because it's like, the backside of The Stranger's a lot bigger than the Owl Rock. You know, it's like... Mm-hmm. It's a lot bigger, I think, than Ember Twin. It's just...
Like, it's one of the bigger planets.
If not the biggest. We don't know.
Even if, it's, cylindrical shape means it takes up less space overall.
Yeah, you're pulled out of scale, and so it's really hard to make good decisions about how to navigate it. So, for me, that was really scary at times. And I died more often than I wanted to, for sure, trying to figure it out and navigate that. But anyway, we're going to wrap this up for right now. And next week, we're going to talk about religion.
It's a kind of controversial topic to talk about religion, but hopefully it's fine if it's video game religion.
Fictional religion should be fine. Fictional religion should be fine, which is part of why we didn't talk too much about horror and fear in The Stranger, because I think a lot of it plays into their culture and their religion, so... Anyway, hope you will join us for that, and we look forward to discussing that with you. I'm going to sign off for now. I am Giggleklutz.
I'm Honeyshuckleex.
I am Zachbot Barbecue.
This has been Collab Not Multiplayer. Goodbye.
Bye.